actually gonna talk about baking cheesecakes. Yes. So I got a phone call at probably like 10:30 this morning from our pastry chef. And if you don't know who our pastry chef is, it is my mother. She's our pastry chef. And she was like, I know what I want you to talk about on your live today. And I'm like, oh, okay, what do you want to talk about? She's like, cheesecake and water baths. And I was like, that sounds so complicated. And she's like, Lindsay, it is not complicated. So if words and terminology in the baking industry like scare you and I'm like, I don't want to try that, that sounds so complicated, then this live is for you, because that's me. Ask my mom. My mom is like, Lindsay, that is not hard to do. And I'm like, oh, it sounds so scary. And then I'll try it and I'll be like, oh yeah, it wasn't that bad. And my mom's like, see, I told you, like, stop feeling so intimidated by these words. They're not scary words. And so today we're going to talk about water baths and how not scary they are. So my husband's birthday is next week, and my 8-year-old has decided that she wants to do cheesecake for my husband. Now, my mom has been on me about, well, just make the cheesecake yourself. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, that sounds so scary. And she's like, all right, this is the perfect time for us to talk about cheesecake and talk about water baths, and then you can go ahead and make one. And I'm like, okay, I'm willing to listen. So she tells me about it, and I'm gonna let you know, water baths are not scary. And actually, we're gonna make my husband a cheesecake. And so when I do that, I will film what we're doing so that I can create a blog post, which I actually wrote between the time my mom called me and the time I went live, about how to build your water bath. And then I'll do a video and some pictures so that you can see how to do it, so that when you do your own cheesecake, it'll be simple. All right, so how did my mom come up with why we need to talk about a water bath? So good question. She and another pastry chef have been working on a cheesecake project, and they've been working with another company, and this company shipped them out some of the cheesecakes, and they were already baked, and they arrived and they were flat and they had a grainy mouthfeel. Now, if you watched my story the other day, I talked about what the word mouthfeel means. So the mouthfeel is the way that you describe taste, texture, smell, and temperature of the things that you're eating, the bite that you're taking, okay? So they're like, it had a really grainy mouthfeel, and they were like, that's super odd. So then the company sent them the batter, and they baked it off, and the cheesecakes were perfect. And so they were sitting around like thinking like, what could have caused that? And so they've come to the conclusion that vacuum sealing your cheesecake is going to obviously remove the air. And when you remove the air, you are going to make your cheesecake more dense, because they didn't look as nice because they had been sealed, vacuum sealed in a bag. And it actually ended up changing the mouthfeel of the cheesecake. So just kind of a note for all of you guys who may be starting out in your business and you want to ship cheesecake, or if you're thinking about like packaging it and giving it to a friend or whatever, just be prepared that if you vacuum seal it, you're going to potentially alter your cheesecake. So that's just a heads up, but that's not even really what we're here to talk about. We are going to talk about water baths. So as they were talking about cheesecakes and the process in cheesecakes, they got to talking about how a lot of times people and restaurants and stuff will kind of skirt around or like cheat the way that they do their cheesecakes, and they don't actually build water baths. Instead, they just put like a bowl or cup of water into a pan and throw it in the oven with the cheesecake. And it really bothers them as pastry chefs that people do that, because it just takes a few extra steps to actually do a water bath. It's not complicated at all. And if you can throw water in a pan and throw it in the oven, you honestly could build a water bath. So let's talk about it, okay? So, they think that the number one mistake that people make when they make cheesecakes, again, is not doing the water bath, is just throwing the water in a pan and putting it in the oven and putting it together and hope that it turns out great. Now, sometimes your cheesecake's gonna turn out fine, but it really increases the risk of that cheesecake flopping. If you're working on making a handmade cheesecake and you want this beautiful cheesecake, like, why skimp on that part of the process, right? So that is the number one mistake that people make. Why do you want a water bath? So a key to making good cheesecake is slow, low, evenly distributed heat, okay? And so the water bath is going to do that even heating for you during the cooking process. So that's why it's so important to have that water bath. It is going to reduce the browning that occurs when you're baking your cheesecake, and it's also going to prevent cracking your cheesecake. Now, not all cheesecake is going to require a water bath. If you're doing a no-bake cheesecake, you're not baking it. You don't need the water bath. It actually uses gelatin. So in that case, you don't have to worry about having the water bath in it. So there you go. You only need it if you're going to be baking it. And it's a very similar process anytime you're doing any custard-based baked product. You're going to want to use this water bath to help with that even heating, okay? So let's talk about like what causes that cracking in your cheesecake. Like you put all this work into that cheesecake and then it cracked. Okay, so not using a water bath. That will cause cracking, okay? Not letting your cheesecake come completely to room temperature. Don't rush that process, okay? Don't rush the cooling process. It's gonna take 4 to 6, potentially more hours for it to come to complete room temperature. And the other mistake that people make that causes cracking typically in their cheesecake is your ingredients when you started were not room temperature. So room temperature, room temperature, room temperature. It's so important, okay? When you're doing cheesecake, remember, slow and steady wins the race. You're gonna have a beautiful product at the end and it's going to taste delicious, okay? So slow and steady wins the race. Let's build our water bath. All right, so you're gonna turn your oven on to 300, okay? You are going to need what is called a spring form. I'm like, what was that word? A spring form pan. So if you've ever seen that, they look like this. They have this little bottom and they open and pull off the top, okay? So like there's this little bottom and this little thing and it allows you to take off the sides without destroying your cheesecake on the inside, okay? So that's a spring form pan. So you're gonna need that spring form pan. You're going to rip out tinfoil, okay? You need 3 to 4 layers. The more tinfoil you have, the better it is. You are going to create a barrier around your cheesecake, okay? You're creating a barrier around your cheesecake to prevent the water from messing up your cheesecake, okay? So you're gonna lay down your 3 or 4 layers of tinfoil. You're going to put your springform pan on them and then you're going to fold up the sides. Now don't fold it over. We're not blocking the cheesecake. We are creating a barrier, okay? Create a barrier around your spring form pan, okay? And then you're going to put your spring form pan in your, sorry about that. All of a sudden I had poor connection. So do not add the water into the pan before they are in the oven. Both pans in the oven. Here's why. I had my water and now I'm walking to the oven and water is sloshing everywhere and I'm risking water getting into my cheesecake, which would ruin my cheesecake. So put everything in the oven, then add your water. You're going to add warm water, not hot. Please do not add hot water. When you add hot things to custard and to eggs, it cooks your eggs. You don't want to scramble your eggs. You're going to add warm water, not hot water, so that we don't scramble those eggs in our cheesecake, okay? So you're gonna add the water, you're going to bake your cake. See, so simple. All you did was like quickly build something, you stick it in the oven, add your water. Be very careful when you add your water. You don't want to splash water again in the cheesecake. Like that's what we're preventing. We've created a barrier to keep the water out, so don't splash it in, okay? You bake it, and when it's done, you're gonna pull it out and you're going to take your cheesecake out of the water. You wanna take your cheesecake out of the water because the water will continue to bake your cheesecake, and we don't wanna do that. So once you do that, you pull your cheesecake out and you let it cool. You let it come completely to room temperature. Roughly 4 to 6 hours. It could be a little bit more, but usually it's 4 to 6 hours. Do not quick cool that. No cracking. Remember, that's what we're trying to prevent. No cracking, okay? So you let it cool, okay? That's as simple as that. That's it. That's all you had to do. You just had to add like a little extra step and build your barrier. It wasn't scary. It wasn't complicated. All right, so that is how you're going to create a water bath and bake yourself some cheesecake. So I want you guys to be on the lookout for the video. So my husband's birthday is next week, and so I'm not sure if we're gonna work on it this weekend or next weekend, but we will make the cheesecake. I will make that video, and then there will be a blog post on our website. So if you're like, okay, I think I could do this, like you're right, it did not sound scary, I'm going to give it a try, then you'll be able to refer back to the video, refer back to this live, refer to the blog post so that you can make cheesecake quick and easy at home, and it's gonna look so beautiful, and people are gonna be like, that's so pretty and that's so delicious, and you're gonna be like, yeah, it was simple. It sounds scary, but it was so simple. So I really hope that this helped you guys out. I want to thank everybody who hopped on and watched this live. If you didn't get to watch it live, make sure that you drop #replay. Let me know that you watched it on the replay. I want to invite everybody to hop off of Facebook eventually today and come see us over at Instagram. Over the next couple of days, we are really working hard on growing our Instagram page. And so I'd love for you to check out our Instagram page and follow us on Instagram. I'd really, really appreciate that from you guys. Plus, I have been loving Instagram stories. Like, seriously, anything that is like, girl, use a filter, I'm like, yes, sign me up. So I am loving Instagram stories. I am doing more stories on Facebook. I know they're not as popular on Facebook, so I've really been focusing on Instagram. But on Facebook, I have been trying to share some of our Did You Know baking tips so that you can watch them in quick video form if you don't really feel like reading, because let's be real, we probably have read a lot now that we've been at home, and sometimes it's just fun to veg out on videos. So I've been trying to post short, quick stories on Facebook so that you can get some baking tips, because if we're going to be at home, we might as well be baking, right? All right, well, you guys, I'm going to hop off of here, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. And if you decide to make a cheesecake, I would love for you to tag us on Instagram, or you can tag us on Facebook, either way. But I'd love to see how it turned out for you guys. All right, see you guys next week. Bye.